Ever have one of those moments where you're not doing anything, but you swear to God you're forgetting something? Worse yet, this feeling tends to fester for a bit before slowly drifting away. And then suddenly, it comes back to smack you in the face to remind you how stupid you are. Yeah, that was me forgetting about Megaman 11. It was a game that I wanted to get the day of release, but I completely forgot about it. Until the quarter guy of all people inadvertently reminded me to get it. By the time I remembered, it had already been out for over a week. Yeah, not my brightest moment. But let's get right on into the next review. This is Megaman 11.
Before I start getting into Megaman 11, I should point out to any newcomers that I'm reviewing this game because I've already reviewed Megaman 1 through 10. So you can check those out if you want to see my take on the earlier games by clicking on the title card that will be on the top right of this video. Megaman 11 was announced during a live stream that was celebrating 30 years of the franchise. Though a 30-year anniversary present from Capcom is nice, it's also kind of messed up that it's been over 8 years since Mega Man 10 was released. I mean, better late than never, but jerking yourself off while neglecting the Blue Bomber for so long does start to feel a little hollow. Mega Man 11 itself was only released last month and it's looking pretty good in visuals. Everything has been updated to look and feel like a classic Mega Man game that's in the modern age. Sleek design, catchy music, and much better voice acting. The last time we saw full voice acting in a Mega Man game was in Mega Man 8, and we don't talk about that game. Just take your cyanide pill and go to sleep. In Mega Man 11, every character sounds fantastic. Well, except for maybe Otto. No hate on the character or the voice actor, but I always saw Otto as having more of a hard-working, no-nonsense metal worker kind of personality. I imagined him like, well, got you some parts if you need an upgrade. Always be needing the right tool for the situation. Y'all need some more bolts or I'll need to slap you with my metal penis hand. Instead, the developers went for more of the Krillin of robots kind of personality. Aside from ripping on Robot Krillin, we have a story to tell. Yes, we go through the normal motions that Dr. Wily is the bad guy, Mega Man is the good guy, and Dr. Light just stands there doing nothing while imagining having turkey for dinner. But there's a little more. The opening to the game involves both young Light and Wily having an argument over Wily's creation of the double gear system, which looks like a brick with a couple gears on it, presumably held together with Elmer's glue or something. The double gear was designed to push a robot to its limits in both speed and power. It was deemed too unethical and Wily's research was discontinued by a committee, making him declare revenge. It was believed that the double gear put too much strain on robots and would not be used for good, so the funding instead went into Dr. Light's research for free-thinking robots. And as we all know, giving robots the freedom of thought always works out well. Just ask Skynet. Seriously though, both sides of the debate are pretty flawed. You have an unstable enhancement upgrade that can be used for evil in one hand, and an idea that could easily lead to a robot rebellion on the other. I'd put that research funding into something that actually mattered, like making a robot that makes me one of 30 different flavored pancakes in the morning. With Light and Wily having their falling out, we jump to the present day where Dr. Wily wakes up and remembers his double gear design, which he then perfects, and then he helps himself to Dr. Light's assortment of robot masters. Dr. Light in response builds Mega Man a double gear system to go after Wily. And this is where I need to raise my hand and call bullshit. First off, these two were working on separate projects, so Light would not have known how Wily's double gear functioned. So how could he have built a double gear for Mega Man? Secondly, Light and Wily seem to be in their 50s or 60s, and let's assume that they were working on their PhDs at their university. That would make them somewhere around their late 20s to early 30s. So how the hell would Light remember the double gear or its functions if he saw it around 30 years ago? At this point, the quarter guy pops into my head and says, "It's video games, don't question it." But I'm gonna bitch as much as I want. Plus, it pads the video's runtime, so at least I get the illusion that I'm saying shit that matters. Anywho, after Dr. Wily is eventually curve stomped, complete with an admittedly hilarious fake out, Dr. Light comes in to try and convince that they can do good together and for Wily to join him again. This is a nice gesture and all, but if memory serves me right, the last time they worked together was in Mega Man 3. You guys remember Gamma, right? The robot those two built as a peacekeeper? That Wily stole? That looked like Gutsman? And now I'm reminded of Wily's near sexual fixation on Gutsman. Shit. When starting up Mega Man 11, you have the option of 4 separate difficulties: Newcomer, Casual, Normal, and Superhero. I've played and beaten this game twice, once on Newcomer and then on Normal for this review. I wanted to get the feel of how the game went, and more importantly, see how the difficulty scale went. To summarize, the difficulty should actually be labeled as Easy, Normal, Advanced, and Hard. The difficulty really spikes up on Normal, mostly due to the enemies just hitting harder. Newcomer mode is frankly way too easy, as you have unlimited resources to save you in case of platforming screw-ups, which I'll get into later. The primary focus is the double gear. There's 2 settings, power gear and speed gear, and they do exactly what you think. One makes Mega Man's blast stronger and the other makes him move faster to avoid obstacles. Just make sure not to have either gear active for too long or Mega Man will be forced into a cooldown state. The power gear can also enhance the attacks of the weapons gained from Robot Masters as well. And speaking of Robot Masters, here's the crew we're dealing with today, complete with puns of all things. Blockman, Acid Man, Blast Man, Impact Man, Tundra Man, Fuse Man, Torch Man, and Bounce Man.
Bounce time!
Freaky artificial genotype. Each of these Robot Masters are outfitted with their own double gear, so when you reduce their health to a certain amount, they will either hit harder or strike faster depending on the Robot Master. The weapons they provide are a bit situational, but the cool part is that the game lets you test them out when you get them. This is a nice method for learning the mechanics of both the weapons and gameplay in general. I find that my most used weapons are the Blazing Torch and the Block Dropper for enemies in awkward or hard to reach places. When I don't feel like dealing with an enemy at all, I'll either nuke them with a powered up Tundra Storm or blow them the fuck up with the powered up Chain Blast.
What, did it have an opinion? Eat me.
I don't find myself using Scramble Thunder or the Pile Driver very much, and the Acid Shield is just freaking worthless. Weirdly enough, I do have a weird sense of entertainment using the Bounce Ball, but that's probably because I can't take killing a boss with balls that squeak seriously. What? I'm a man of simple pleasures. As for the stages, you'll quickly find that your speed gear is your best friend. A few of these stages have chase sequences, and if you're like me, then platforming under pressure tends to be an issue. My most hated chase sequence is in Blockman stage, and the best way to describe my movements in these circumstances is being in a class for 2 hours and immediately rushing through a crowd trying to get to the nearest bathroom.
Son, open the bathroom door! I don't care if you're rubbing one out, I've got to drop a resume!
During these chase sequences, I also find that I'm switching weapons by mistake due to an auto-select feature on my controller's right thumbstick, or if I graze the ZL or ZR buttons. This also happens in mini-boss and boss fights too, and it's been the cause of many game overs. And that's something you should be expecting from this Mega Man game. It's pretty freaking hard, or at least as hard as whatever the game considers as a normal difficulty. Thankfully, the game has some saving graces in this field. Even though it's unlikely that you'll make it to the first boss without getting your shit pushed in, you can buy upgrades and support items in this game, and screws are plentiful. So all you'll really need are some extra lives and some E-tanks to comfortably take on the bosses. I also recommend getting the upgrades that boost your movement speed while using the speed gear, and the upgrade that lowers the cooldown time. At least then the chase sequences will be much easier to deal with. Lastly, let's talk about Rush. I miss this little guy. Rush returns with Rush Coil available from the start, and Rush Jet becomes available after 4 Robot Masters are completed. There's not a whole lot of situations where they can be used in, but the areas where they are tend to be a lifesaver. It really makes up for Rush Jet's energy usage being so high. I'm finding that the best thing about Mega Man 11 is its level of accessibility. The newcomer mode is a great way to introduce players to a Mega Man game, but it does spoil the player a bit. All support items are infinite, so you'll never instantly die from spikes or falling into a pit. The game has you covered. It's almost insulting, but the easiness is for those that have never played a Mega Man game before. When you jump to normal mode, you'll find fights being significantly harder. Upgrades are basically a must, even before the first Robot Master. Thankfully, the access to screws and the upgrades you get early on are a big help, so there should never be a place where you get stuck. The double gear feature is a very cool mechanic, especially since you can decide how you want to approach an obstacle with it. Imagine trying to platform in this game without the ability to slow down time with a speed gear. Then cheap shots over bottomless pits will be even more plentiful. Personally, I would imagine the majority of you favoring the speed gear, since it allows you to react better to attacks and platforming overall, which will take off a huge amount of stress while playing. So Mega Man 11 is new player friendly for showing the ropes, normal player friendly for ease of access to items, and it's also stoner player friendly for how slow and steady the speed gear can make gameplay. Or, they can just trip out on Mega Man's afterimage and the entirety of Bounce Man stage, so they win either way. You do you, stoners. In terms of weapons, they have their uses even if those uses are situational. Though the blazing torch strikes in a particular pattern, it also packs a punch big enough to kill most common enemies in a single hit. That alone can put its use above everything else. You'll also find that the best use for every other weapon in this game is the mini-boss, as the right weapon will annihilate them in only a few hits, which saves both time and health. In addition to the weapons, the return of some of Mega Man's overall mechanics is very welcoming. Those that played Mega Man 9 and 10 might remember that the charge shot and the slide were removed, as the games wanted to go old school with Mega Man. I can see why Capcom went this route, but it didn't make it any less stupid. With these two functions back, Mega Man feels more complete, and even better now that there is an upgrade that will automatically charge Mega Man's Mega Buster for a charge shot when you're not firing it. Story-wise, it's nothing new. Overall, it's the same shtick. Dr. Wily is a bad guy with robot masters. The plus side is that we see more motives behind Wily and his grudge towards Light. Both are visionaries with good ideas, but the drawbacks to them are equally extreme. If there was something else about the story worth pointing out, I would say it's the absence of Proto Man and Bass. Not to get too meta, but I had to go back into the script and write them in because I completely forgot about these two. Sure, it's fine focusing on a story that's strictly on Mega Man, but Proto Man and Bass added to the overall story in their own way, and it just doesn't quite feel the same without them. If you haven't played a Mega Man game before and you don't care which one to start with, choose Mega Man 11. It's a good challenge and very easy to play for just about every skill level. It's the game that Mighty No. 9 wishes it could be.
And that's gonna do it for today's review. If you've played Mega Man 11, I would love to hear your thoughts on it. I had a lot of fun with this game despite the enormous challenges here and there. It makes me hope for a new Mega Man game about, say 3 years after the apocalypse starts. And before I close out today's video, I want to announce a new countdown that I'm gonna have planned. This one was a suggestion in the comments of the last countdown, and it's going to be 7 tanky characters in video games. Because, bro, do you even lift? This has been Regnilla, and I will see you all again next time. Take care, people.